The day he left me, I thought my heart would never recover. Looking back now, I realize that was the beginning of a story nobody could have predicted. My name is Emma, and for 6 years, my entire world revolved around one man. We met when we were young, ambitious, and convinced that love could survive anything. Together, we built dreams that felt unbreakable. We talked about marriage, children, and growing old side by side. Every decision I made included him. Every plan I created had his name written somewhere inside it. That was why his sudden change terrified me. At first, it was small things. He answered messages later than usual. He seemed distracted during conversations. Sometimes I would catch him staring into space with a strange expression on his face. Whenever I asked what was wrong, he would smile and tell me he was just stressed from work. Because I loved him, I believed him. Then the distance between us started growing. The laughter disappeared. Date nights became rare. Conversations became shorter. I kept blaming myself. Maybe I wasn't supportive enough. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough. Maybe I was expecting too much. I spent months trying to fix problems I didn't even understand. One evening, I prepared his favorite dinner. I thought maybe we needed time together. Maybe we needed to reconnect. Instead, he came home, barely touched his food, and spent most of the evening looking at his phone. Something inside me knew that our relationship was changing, but I wasn't ready to face the truth. I kept holding on because the alternative was too painful to imagine. A few weeks later, he asked if we could talk. The moment I heard those words, my stomach dropped. Deep down, I already knew my life was about to change forever. We sat across from each other in complete silence. I remember staring at his face, searching for the man I had fallen in love with. Instead, I saw someone distant. Someone who had already made a decision long before that conversation began. Finally, he took a deep breath and said words that shattered everything I believed about our future. I don't think this is working anymore. At first, I couldn't even process what he was saying. 6 years together reduced to a single sentence. I asked him if there was someone else. He immediately said no. He claimed he needed space. He claimed he needed to find himself. He claimed the breakup had nothing to do with another woman. Even through my tears, something felt wrong. The next morning, he packed his belongings and left. Watching that door close behind him felt like watching my entire future disappear. The apartment suddenly felt empty. Every corner carried memories. Every photograph felt like evidence of a life that no longer existed. I cried until I had no tears left. Days turned into weeks. Friends tried to help, but nothing seemed to work. Then, one night, while scrolling through social media, I saw something that stopped my heart. A mutual friend had posted photos from a party. There he was, smiling, laughing, standing very close to a woman I had never seen before. What hurt wasn't the photo itself. It was the way he looked at her, the way he used to look at me. At that moment, a terrible realization washed over me. Maybe our relationship hadn't ended because he needed space. Maybe it ended because he had already found someone else. But what I didn't know then was that his betrayal would eventually become the greatest gift life ever gave me. The following year was one of the hardest periods of my life. Heartbreak doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in waves. Mornings, I felt strong enough to move forward. Other mornings, I couldn't get out of bed. I questioned everything. I questioned my worth. I questioned my judgment. Most of all, I questioned whether any of those 6 years had been real. Eventually, I realized I had two choices. I could spend the rest of my life mourning someone who chose to leave, or I could rebuild myself. It wasn't easy, but I decided to focus on me. I enrolled in professional courses. I worked longer hours. I accepted projects that scared me. Slowly, my confidence began returning. The more I invested in myself, the stronger I became. My career started growing faster than I ever expected. Managers noticed my work ethic. Clients appreciated my ideas. Opportunities started appearing everywhere. For the first time in years, I wasn't living for someone else's approval. I was building a future that belonged entirely to me. Meanwhile, occasional updates about my ex continued reaching me through mutual friends. Apparently, he was dating the same woman from those photos. Their relationship looked perfect online. Expensive vacations, romantic captions, smiling pictures. Everyone seemed convinced they were living a dream. But social media only shows what people want others to see. Behind every perfect photograph can exist a completely different reality. I didn't know it yet, but that reality was already beginning to crack. 3 years passed. During that time, my life transformed completely. I earned multiple promotions and eventually became one of the top performers in my company. Financially, I was stable. Emotionally, I was healing. The woman who once cried herself to sleep was slowly disappearing. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and far more confident. Then one afternoon, I received unexpected news. A mutual friend called me and asked if I had heard about my ex. I told her no. What she said next shocked me. His relationship had become a disaster. The constant arguments had replaced the happiness displayed online. Trust issues had destroyed their connection. Financial struggles created even more tension. According to our friend, they barely spoke without fighting. As strange as it sounds, I didn't feel happy hearing that. Years earlier, I might have celebrated. But by then, I had grown beyond that pain. His life no longer controlled my emotions. Still, I couldn't ignore the irony. The man who walked away from loyalty was now struggling to find it elsewhere. Several months later, another major opportunity changed my life. I was promoted into a leadership position and given my own office. It felt surreal. The same woman who once believed she wasn't enough was now leading teams and making decisions that affected entire departments. Then came the day nobody could have predicted. My assistant entered my office and told me someone wanted to see me. When she said his name, my heart skipped a beat. I hadn't seen him in years. Part of me wondered what he could possibly want. Another part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know. A few moments later, he walked through the door. The confident man who once left me behind was gone. In his place stood someone exhausted, defeated, and carrying visible regret in his eyes. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence felt heavy. He looked around my office before finally focusing on me. I could see surprise on his face. Perhaps he expected to find the same broken woman he left years earlier. Instead, he found someone completely different. Eventually, he began talking. He told me about the collapse of his relationship. He told me about poor financial decisions. He told me about opportunities he had lost and mistakes he wished he could undo. As he spoke, one thing became painfully clear. Life had not turned out the way he expected. Then he said something I never imagined hearing. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Years earlier, those words would have meant everything to me. I spent countless nights dreaming about the day he would realize what he lost. But now that the moment had finally arrived, I felt surprisingly calm. There was no excitement.
No satisfaction.
No desire for revenge. Only peace. He apologized repeatedly. He admitted that he had met the other woman before ending our relationship. He admitted he wasn't honest. He admitted he had taken my love for granted. Listening to those confessions felt strange because the wounds they once would have opened had already healed. Finally, he asked the question I knew was coming. Do you think we could start over? For a moment, I looked at the man sitting across from me. Once upon a time, I would have given anything to hear those words. But life had changed me. The heartbreak that nearly destroyed me had also transformed me. It forced me to discover strength I never knew existed. I smiled gently and shook my head.
No.
Not because I hated him, not because I wanted revenge, but because I respected myself. The woman he abandoned spent years rebuilding her confidence, her future, and her identity. I wasn't willing to sacrifice that journey for someone who only appreciated my value after losing me. He lowered his head and quietly accepted my answer. A few minutes later, he stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he apologized one final time. Then he was gone. As I watched the door close, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because he was suffering, but because I finally understood an important truth. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive through revenge. Sometimes justice arrives when life teaches people the lessons they refuse to learn. He left me heartbroken, believing he was walking toward something better. What happened next shocked everyone, including him. The life he abandoned flourished. The future he chose collapsed. And the woman he once underestimated became stronger than he ever imagined. If there's one lesson I learned from all of this, it's that heartbreak can either destroy you or transform you. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply becoming the person your pain tried and failed to